All right, we're going to learn how to factor out quadratics. There's 4 steps that you need to remember. The first step, put it in standard form. And standard form is just ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So the key really here is it's got to be set equal to 0. And the first term has to be that x squared term. So really, if you can just remember those 2 things, you'll be in standard form. And the middle term has to be the x term. All right. So our second step is we need to factor using the acronym AFM. A stands for add, F stands for factor, and M stands for multiply. All right, I'll show you how to do that in a second. Third step, check using the box or the FOIL methods. So in other words, we expand it back out and make sure it equals the quadratic above. And then fourth step is we set each of those factors equal to 0, and then we solve. All right, take a second, copy those down. You can pause the video if you need to. All right, let's go on to example 1. Example 1, x squared minus 2x minus 15 equals 0. First step, is it set equal to 0? Yes. Is it in standard form? Well, we have the squared term and then the x term, and then our constant, so yeah, it's in standard form. Second step, we need to factor using AFM. So let's go ahead and make our x, and then AFM, add, factor, multiply. So I'm going to start by multiplying. So what's the coefficient of my x squared term? That's right, it's understood to be a 1. So we're just doing 1 times negative 15. That gives us negative 15. And then for the a part, we want to know it's going to add to that middle term. So what's the middle term? Negative 2. So notice I just brought down that middle term. So that step's pretty easy. You just bring down the coefficient of the x term, which is negative 2. And now the F stands for the factors. So we're looking at the factors of negative 15 that add to negative 2. So what are my factors of negative 15? Well, I have 5 and I have 3, and I have 1 and I have 15. Well, the only ones that make sense to me that would add to negative 2 would be 5 and 3 because they're 2 apart. And since I have a negative 15 there, I know that one of my numbers has to be negative. What if I did the negative on the 3? 5 times negative 3, that gives me negative 15. But if I add them, it gives me a positive 2, not a negative 2. So that's not right. So the negative has to go with the 5, because negative 5 plus 3 gives me the negative 2. So that works. All right, and then all I need to do is bring down, since I know these are factors, I'm going to use parentheses and set it equal to 0. And then I know it's going to be an x for each of these. That's just the format. And the only time that'll be something in front of the x is if that lead coefficient's different, but we'll get to that in a different example. So that's just 1x. And then that negative 5 just brings straight down to here. That 3 goes straight down to there. And we factored it. That's a positive 3. So we're done with the second step. Third step, we want to check it. So the box method is when you write your 2 factors using a column and a row, and then just make a box for each of those terms. So it's x times x, which gives us x squared, negative 5 times x, which gives us negative 5x. And next we have x times positive 3, which gives us 3x, and then negative 5 times positive 3, which gives us negative 15. All right, now just add up your like terms, and we can check it. So that becomes x squared minus 2x minus 15. Is that what we originally had? Yeah, x squared minus 2x minus 15. So we know we factored it right. So we're done with the third step. And fourth step is just to solve it. So set them equal to 0, your factors. X minus 5 equal to 0, x plus 3 equal to 0. And we add 5, and x is 5. And we subtract 3, and x is negative 3. And when you write your final answer, just put it using the brackets. The set brackets would be negative 3 and 5 are our two solutions. And we're done. That wasn't too bad. Hardest thing may be the AFM, just learning the order there. Let's try a second example. This one's going to be a little trickier. So on this one, what do you notice different about it? I noticed two things. We have a different coefficient for our x squared. It's actually got a 2 there, not a 1. And it's not equal to 0. So my first step is to make sure it's equal to 0. So I need to get rid of that 6. So I'm going to do a minus 6. I need to get rid of the minus 4x. So I'm going to do a plus 4x. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. So I'm going to add 4x. I'm going to subtract 6. Notice I lined up the x's because I know those are like terms. And these cancel, giving me 0. So it would be 0. And then 2x squared I'm going to bring down. Negative 3x plus 4x gives me positive x. And then I just have a minus 6 all by itself. So now we're done with the first step. We have it set equal to 0. It's in standard form. I have my x squared term first. Second step, we want to factor. So remember, AFM, so make your x. And just a reminder, it goes AFM. So if I multiply my 2 by my negative 6, the m is on the bottom, so that would be negative 12. And then it's going to add up to my middle coefficient. What's the middle coefficient? Yeah, that's understood to be a positive 1. And then we're looking for the factors of my negative 12 that add up to 1. So what are the factors of negative 12? We have 2 and 6. Do those add up to 1? Nah. What about 3 and 4? Yeah, those will add up to 1. And it's got to give us a negative 12 when we multiply them, so that means one of the numbers has to be negative. So if I did the negative on the 3, negative 3 plus 4, yeah, that gives me positive 1. So that works. All right. We're almost done, but be careful. Remember, we have a different lead coefficient here. That's a 2. So on that second step, we need to be real careful. We need to put that 2 on the bottom of each of our factors. All right? And make sure that it's simplified. So that lead coefficient, again, it just goes to the bottom of each of those. And then we simplify. So 4 over 2 simplifies to 2 over 1, or just 2. And the one on the left is already simplified, negative 3 over 2. All right, not so bad. I'm going to write my two factors using parentheses. Set it equal to 0. And instead of just writing, remember that minus 3 normally just goes down right here, and the 2 will just go right here. And we normally just have an x there, right? Well, the only difference is here I have a 2 on the bottom, so that tells me it's going to be a 2x. I didn't have anything on the bottom on my second one. It was just a 2, so it's just going to be an x right there. So the only time you get a different coefficient in front of the x is if you have something on the bottom, like that 2. All right, we can remember that. And now we're done with the second step. Third step, we want to factor it using the box method. So I'm just going to do 2x minus 3 and multiply it by my x plus 2 and make sure I did this right. So 2x times x is 2x squared. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. 2x times 2 is 4x. And negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. And I want to add up my like terms. So I get 2x squared plus x minus 6. Is that what I started with? You betcha. 2x squared plus x minus 6. So that means I factored it right. If I get a mistake there, I get something different, I know I made a mistake on my factoring. Alright, fourth step, we want to set them both equal to 0. So 2x minus 3 equal to 0, and x plus 2 equal to 0. So I'm going to add 3, and then I get 2x equal to 3. Running out of room here. I divide by 2, and x will just be 3 over 2, or 1.5. On the second factor, if I subtract 2 and I get x equals negative 2, so I can just write my solutions out and set brackets, so negative 2 comma 3 halves. Alright, I want you guys to try a couple on your own. Here's example 3, which is our first one on your own. So go ahead and copy this one down, and then pause it and try it on your own. Alright, and here for the solution. Alright, first step, we set it equal to 0 by adding the x to both sides. Alright, second step, we used AFM. So we added to get negative 2. Our factors are negative 6 and 4, and they multiply to give us negative 24. And we got x minus 6 and x plus 4 equal to 0. And the third step, we used our box method over here, and we multiplied everything out and got x squared minus 2x minus 24, and that matched our original equation equal to 0. So that checked. And our fourth step, we set them both equal to 0, both of our factors, and we got 6 and negative 4, and we just write those using set brackets. Alright, did you get that right? If not, go ahead and rewind the video and watch it again. Alright, now for our second example, your second one on your own. Try 2x squared minus x equals 21. Give that one a shot and pause the video. Alright, now let's check how to do that. Alright, first step, we solved it for 0, and we got 2x squared minus x minus 21 equals 0. Now it's in standard form. Second step, we got our AFM. They add to negative 1. Our factors are negative 7 and 6, and it multiplies to give us negative 42. Next, we write it over our lead coefficient, so we get negative 7 over 2, and then it simplifies to 3. And then that 2 on the bottom just means that that's a 2x. And then I bring down the minus 7, and we have x plus 3 for the other one, equal to 0. And for the third step, we expand it out, and we get 2x squared minus x minus 21. That matches what we had up here, so it checks. And then for our last step, we set each of our factors equal to 0, and we get 3.5 and negative 3 for our two solutions. Is that what you got? If so, great job. If not, let's try it again.